All right, everybody, get ready because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of VR. Specifically, we're checking out a gadget that could revolutionize how we create in virtual spaces. You know those mind-blowing VR painting apps, right? Like Tilt Brush, where people are creating those crazy, detailed Star Wars lightsaber battles and bringing Dragon Ball Z characters to life.
Yeah, it's really amazing what some people are able to make with those apps, though there's always been that one kind of obvious limitation, right? Trying to create something that needs real precision and control using those clunky controllers.
Yeah, totally. It's like, I don't know, trying to paint the Mona Lisa with a brick or something. Haha. But that's where this new gadget from Logitech comes in, the MX Ink stylus. They say this thing is a total game changer for VR creatives. So what's the deal with this magic pen?
Well, like those VR controllers you were talking about, it's spatially tracked, so that means it can follow your hand movements in 3D space. But here's where it gets really cool. Logitech designed it to feel like an actual pen, with a pressure-sensitive tip and even a button on the side, just like a regular pen.
Wait, so you're saying I could actually feel the difference between a light sketch and pressing hard, like a real pen, in VR?
Exactly. And there's more. That pressure sensitivity isn't just a gimmick, it's meant to give you a truly realistic drawing experience. Whether you're sketching on a virtual canvas, or if you're like sculpting a 3D model. Remember those developer notes you mentioned? Something about Meta XR Core SDK and the Unity game engine.
Yeah, to be honest, that's the part where I kind of glaze over a bit.
Basically, those are the tools that developers can use to translate what you do with the stylus in the real world into the VR space. It's like
Yeah.
the SDK is what lets the stylus talk to the VR software. It tells it like, hey, they're pressing harder now, or they just click the button. And then the Unity engine, that's what a lot of VR games and apps are actually built on.
Okay, so that's how the stylus talks to the software. But what about those input actions they were talking about? What are those all about?
Okay, so imagine you're using the stylus and you click that button on the side. That click, that could be an input action. It could be programmed to instantly switch your color palette or change your brush size, stuff like that. It's all about making the creative process more intuitive. Instead of messing around with menus, you're making things happen with a click of your stylus.
Wow. Okay, so this is more than just a fancy digital pen then. It's starting to sound like it's really an extension of your hand in VR.
Exactly, and that's what's really exciting about it. This kind of tech has the potential to change everything for people who want to take their real-world creativity into VR.
Right, you've definitely got my attention. This is already blowing my mind, and we're just getting started. But before we get into all that, let's take a quick break. So you were saying something before the break about how this stylus could blur the lines between the real world and VR.
Yeah, totally. Remember that pass-through feature on the Quest? The one that lets you see your actual surroundings while you're still in VR?
Yeah, it's pretty wild seeing your living room all superimposed on top of some crazy virtual landscape. I always feel like I'm going to walk right into a wall, though. Haha.
Right. Well, imagine using that pass-through feature together with the pressure-sensitive tip on the stylus. What Logitech is saying is that developers could create these mixed reality apps where you could, like, virtually sketch furniture designs right onto the floor of your living room.
Wait, hold on. Are you serious? I could be doodling a new couch in midair and actually see it sitting there in my living room, all while wearing a VR headset.
Exactly. That's the kind of crazy stuff this technology could make possible. It's like taking your imagination and, like, I don't know, overlaying it onto the real world perfectly.
Okay, that is seriously cool. But enough about possibilities. Let's talk about what it's actually like to use this thing. What about those buttons on the side? What do those do?
So Logitech released this sample app, and it gives you an idea of how the buttons work. So picture this. You're in VR, and as you press the button on the stylus, it actually changes color in the virtual world. So you get this immediate visual feedback that it's registering your input.
I like that. It's those little details that really make VR feel immersive.
Right. And it gets better. They even added haptic feedback.
Haptic feedback, you mean like a little vibration?
Exactly. So you don't just see it, but you also feel it when you press the button. Adds another layer of realism.
Man, I love those little touches. Got to trick the senses. But here's the thing, though. It can't just be about drawing and stuff.
Yeah.
If I'm in VR, I want to be able to interact with everything, like grab objects, navigate menus, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely, you're right. If a VR stylus is going to be truly versatile, it needs to be able to do more than just make art. And that's where this other thing comes in. The Meta XR Interaction SDK.
Okay, so what is that? In English, please.
Haha. Okay, so think of it as a toolbox for developers, right? It lets them create these more complex interactions that you can do with the stylus. It's like taking a regular paintbrush and turning it into a multi-tool. You can grab and move virtual objects or use it to navigate through crazy 3D menus.
Woo, so I could be sculpting something in VR and use the stylus to, like, chisel away at the details
Yeah,
and then just switch to using it like a hand to rotate what I'm working on.
that's the idea. It could even let you seamlessly switch between the stylus and your VR controllers depending on what you need to do.
This is blowing my mind, and we're just scratching the surface, right? What other tricks does Logitech have up their sleeve with this thing?
Well, we haven't even talked about the customization options yet, and it's actually really cool what they're doing.
Okay, now you've got me curious. Tell me more.
So get this, you can actually fine-tune how sensitive the stylus tip and the button are. Like if you want it to respond to a lighter touch or a harder press, you can change it in the Quest settings.
You're kidding. So if I'm someone who naturally draws with the light touch, I can set it up to match my style.
Exactly. It's all about giving you the control to personalize it and make the VR experience feel as intuitive as possible.
So wait, I can actually calibrate a digital tool to be more like, well, me. That's pretty amazing. But it makes you wonder, are there times when you just want to use a VR controller? I mean, they're not totally useless.
Oh, for sure. Controllers definitely still have their place.
Yeah.
Think about navigating those really complex menus, the ones with tons of different options and stuff.
Right. Right?
Sometimes you need that quick point and click that you get with the controller. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's like, why use I don't know, a butter knife when you need a steak knife? Or something like that. Okay, that's a terrible analogy.
I get what you mean.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not about one thing replacing the other. It's about having the right tool for whatever you're doing and being able to easily switch between them too.
Right, being able to seamlessly go back and forth, that seems key.
For sure. Imagine you're working in VR and you're using the stylus for all the detail work, like sculpting or something. But then you need to move around or grab something big and boom, you switch to the controllers. It becomes this fluid thing going between precision and broader movements.
This has been really eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's not just about a new gadget. It's like Logitech is showing us what the future of VR interaction could be.
And it all just feels so much more intuitive and natural this way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started, really, aren't we? I mean, the MX Ink is just the beginning.
Exactly. I think once developers really get their hands on this tech and start experimenting, we're going to see some crazy innovative VR stuff.
It just makes you wonder, what are those VR worlds going to be like when we can interact with them in such a natural way?
Now, that's something to think about.
Definitely a question for another deep dive, don't you think?
Absolutely. Sounds good to me.
All right, everybody, thanks for coming along on this incredible journey into the world of VR. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.